What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dripping Creativity Podcast. I am your host, Chris Corvan, and today we're sitting down with an author who has not only lived an extraordinary life, but who also channels his adventures into deeply compelling stories. Born in Vermont, Timothy Robare, did I say that right?
You did.
Also known as Lord Robare, has traveled over 60 countries, 49 states, and brings a world of experience to his work. His latest books, Tales of Battle and Writing with Wolves, blends his love of animals and his passion for storytelling. Timothy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How's it going today?
I'm great. How are you?
Same shit, different day. Let's kind of dive right in and go back to the very beginning here. So you grew up on a small island in Vermont. You've done a shit ton of traveling. How did that journey kind of start from a small town upbringing to becoming a global traveler?
I think I always felt a little too big for my town, which I do love. I love the little island I came from. I think it's an amazing place. It's very unlike any other. I think growing up near an hour from Montreal kind of started it because you get a bunch of culture. So you go from this little tiny nowhere town to a huge international city. And then I went to university and started studying the Romantic poets. And their version of like growing into writers was going to Italy and Greece and kind of maturing into writers and individuals. And I was like, I'm going to do that too. And then I hopped over to Egypt while I was there. And then I came back. And after like 2 months, I was like, I got to travel more. So...
that's the best way to go about doing it, really. So with traveling being such a important part of your identity, how has seeing the world influenced your approach to storytelling? Do you find that certain countries or cultures have a deeper impact in your narrative?
I think having an indigenous background already impacted my storytelling because indigenous people are really big into telling stories, especially verbally. So doing it writing wise is also fun. And I think traveling has impacted that. Just in the way I see the world and see people. I think going from a small town and then going from just US and Canada to really seeing how the world functions and how different the world is and all the aspects. I think if you're paying attention and just experiencing everything, it all just kind of comes into your writing automatically. I think if I had to say two places, it'd be Greece and Mongolia really influenced my writing just on the people, the history, and the way they see the world, I think. But every country has played a role.
Perfect. So with Mongolia there and Egypt, which aspects really kind of drew you in first? Like, do you have like a specific thing that really caught you?
Mongolia, I mean, we all know of Genghis Khan, obviously, and a huge empire, which is cool. But I think going to Mongolia and knowing about this huge empire and everything they controlled and going there and, it's, I think 96% unpaved roads and almost all the people are either nomadic or they live in Ulaanbaatar. I think and the way they approach life, they're all given a certain amount of hectares of land when they're born. They all move around. They love the land. They're really cheerful. And they don't have anything really, like not to us, at least, not to materialistic cultures. They don't have anything. But they're so happy and giving, and even with what little they have, they want to give it to you, even if you don't speak, because obviously I don't know any Mongolian, and they don't know much English. So they were just really kind, and the way they respected the land, and just seeing a place that used to be this huge empire, and now is just pretty much rustic, just pure nature, and people living in yurts and doing their thing, I think was just really otherworldly, and the way they approached life was really beautiful. As far as Egypt has the pyramids, the Sahara, it's everything you think it's going to be, and it's pretty chaotic and magical. So I think being my first Islamic country and my first non-Western country that I visited, it just totally struck me in awe. Everything about it was magical and dirty, but also what you hope it would be. So it's I don't know, it kind of just met expectations.
Do you find yourself kind of pulling inspiration for those types of things when you're crafting a world or looking into your narratives?
I think so. I mean, one of my queendoms in my Tales of Battle book is based off of Egypt, which I think a lot of people base their stuff off Egypt, but roughly based off Egypt and Cleopatra, because mildly obsessed with her. And then I think everything writing-wise is basically based off of Greece in some way and Italy in some way, because that's where it all began to Western writers, I think. And then Mongolia, I just based a piece of my book off. I think I try to, the more I travel, the more I try to incorporate other parts of the world, because I think we see a standard set of the world, and there's so many countries that are kind of go unseen and unrepresented. So I think it's fun to kind of try to incorporate them and have them have a piece of the fictional world as well.
Definitely. I mean, that's actually one of the things that I'm currently working on, is bringing some of the older native myths back into a modern setting. So pulling that type of thing, especially the ones that don't get around as often as, you know, the popular myths and all that. I love that. I love that type of storytelling. So that's fantastic. All right. So you studied writing at the Plattsburgh State, correct?
Yes.
How did that academic experience kind of shape you into the writer you are today? Was there a moment when you kind of realized this is what I want to do, or did it happen before that?
I always had been writing. I was born unable to hear for a few years and had some surgeries and had speech therapy and went through all this ups and downs with speaking. So writing always came natural. I just thought it was fun. Never thought I would try to do anything with it really, other than write some poems, enter some contests, and see how it goes. And then I started out as a genetics major, and I was in an English class, and my professor was like, "You're too good of a writer. Why are you here?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I have to be. It's a prerequisite, so I had to take this class." And she's like, "No, you're too good for it. You shouldn't even be here." And then she asked me what my major was after class, and I told her, and she was like, "You're wasting your talent." She's like, "As an English professor, you write better than I do, so you should be a writer," which I don't think I do, because I mean, I don't think any writer looks at their writings like, "Yes, this is great." Usually we're like garbage. And she just kind of blew up my head in a way that nobody ever had. I mean, people are always like, "Oh, your poems are good." And I made money off it in college and high school. I wrote people's papers and their poems and made money. But like having a professor be like, "Oh, you're so good." And at the same time, I was taking anatomy and physiology and totally sucking. And I was like, this class makes me miserable. This class makes me happy. And I was like, you know what? Just gonna do it. Whatever. Follow my dream and see how it goes. I've never been like a, I need a ton of money to survive person. I've never needed more than I need to survive, basically, comfortably. So I didn't have a problem following my dream. As far as shaping my writing goes, I was really fortunate to have a great set of professors that really challenged you and also taught in very different ways. One professor would have us write papers, and he required that we made up a word and used it multiple times so he could understand what it meant. And I thought that was super unique and amazing, because that was a literature class, not even a fiction class. And then, you know, one professor, she was more UK style, and she had her husband and her are total opposites. She had no issue being like, "Hey, this kind of sucks." And being like, but she would also be like, "You could do better here, here, and here." So she'd be like, "This part's pretty terrible, but you could do this." She even let me totally go out of whim on my final. She gave us finals, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to do why this book is good and this author sucks." And she did, and she was like, "This is your best writing." And I was like, "Well, thank you." And then one of my other professors was just kind of nutty. She was like a nutty, hippie, really cool, down-to-earth professor who really let us, I think, grow as writers ourselves while constructing us. And she gave us a lot of freedom, but also the way she taught, I think she got into our heads a lot more than we realized at the time, because she was so hippie and kind of freeing. But I think because of that, everything she said really stuck. And I had her for like 3 or 4 classes because I loved her. So
is when you learn getting different points of view and different styles and looks at how to do things, so you can really kind of, you know, pick the parts that you really enjoy yourself to craft your own. And I think that's awesome, like, to have that kind of education just from those ones alone. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, let's kind of dive right in here. We're going to talk about Tales of Battle right now. So it's Tales of Battle, the Fox, the Jaguar, and the Mysterious Island, right?
Correct.
All right,
yep.
Good. What is the heart of the story? What kind of inspired this adventurous tale, and how does it all represent deeper themes?
Grew up loving Redwall. First series I remember reading, and I was like, man, this animal war is really cool. Now, only if they are more human-like. And I've always had an obsession with animals more than humans, I won't lie. So I was working at a gas station, started writing. I love foxes, had a fox as my main hero. And then I thought of a really beautiful animal that could be very like brutal. So I picked a jaguar because they're not too super common. And then it all switched up. The jaguar ended up also becoming a hero, brought in a whole genocide of animals to kind of show humanity and how we're so like one-sided sometimes. And then it ended up in this giant adventure. I hand wrote it all at night while I was working at a gas station and let it kind of do its own thing. And now I'm writing book 6. So, and getting ready to publish book 2.
That's a very interesting way to write it all down, especially just handwritten. Like, I don't know. I did a lot of graveyard shifts at a gas station myself, and yeah, no, there's a lot of creative stuff happens late at night, and I never thought to bring an actual pad and paper with me.
I'd get everything done that I had to get done, and I had about the last 2 hours of nothingness, and 1 or 2 customers would come in, and I just would sit there and just write and kind of let it all happen. It is kind of crazy to keep it all organized on paper compared to now, putting it all in the computer afterward, but I wouldn't have changed it.
I still got all my journals from, when I wasn't working, but writing and all that just stashed somewhere. Eventually I got to go through all that shit, see what I got. See how emo Chris was as a teenager. So let's kind of move on to writing with wolves there. How does that project kind of differ from the other things you're writing there? What's the wolf symbolize to you, and how does the connection reflect in your storytelling?
So it's another one of my poetry books, and I'm super fortunate that Juniper Hartman made my cover and put in a lot of work for it. It's meaningful to me in the way that it has a lot of different symbologies in it. It has indigenous background in it. It has being mixed. I've talked to a lot of mixed people, how it impacts them, especially indigenous mixed people. One of my best friends in Colorado, he and I really bonded on, we were both mixed. I grew up off reservation, he grew up on, in the different ways that it impacted us both. And that really plays a big role in, I think mixed people, it plays a big role because we don't have a solid identity compared to other people, especially indigenous people, I think, because tribes can be so brutal, and even on ourselves, we're pretty brutal. It brings in hiking and adventuring and climbing, which is a huge part of my life. The love of nature, which obviously is myself and also indigenous, and a lot of different cultures have this very profound love of nature. The symbolism of nature, and then wolves in general, they're misunderstood. Everybody, people fear them. People are like, oh, they're going to come eat your baby. And I've interacted with multiple wolves now. I've been very fortunate in that way I've met about 6 or 7 wolves, and through rehabilitation centers. And they're super kind and shy, and I've been able to also watch them in the wild pretty closely. And they're just really majestic. Obviously natives very much respect them. They're necessary for life and death. They're a big symbolic animal in that way. And they're also, fiercely loyal. They're loyal to the pack. They're kind. They're intelligent. They really have a high representation. So this poetry book is special to me in a different way than my other ones, because it really, as I've matured in life and I've taken all this in, I've now taken from 4 or 5 different really important areas and rolled it into this book.
That's as a native boy myself, especially an apple, as my dad always called me, called ourselves, I guess. I fully understand all of that. That's fantastic. I absolutely love that. Let's kind of go into your writing process here. So you have been described as an organic and even chaotic at times. How do you kind of structure your stories? What is the typical writing day for you?
The structure is all in here and in here, because everywhere else it is not. My days are anywhere. I could start writing at 5 a.m. right when I wake up before I go to work or whatever, or I'll write at noon. I'm a substitute teacher right now, so sometimes I write at work, and sometimes I write super late at night. I try to meditate at night for like my last 45 minutes, and sometimes I'll just be like, oh shit, and I'll just start writing because I'm like, oh, I'm struck. I wish I could be like other authors and have a little more structure. I'm going to try for my next series I've been trying to plan out my next series just because, as far as world building and map building, a little bit of structure prior goes a long way, opposed to the opposite, which I did with this book. So still piecing maps together based off of my writing, which is not the most fun. But I really like to write very natural. I like to write when I'm inspired. I like to write whenever I feel like it. I could write 25 days straight, or I could not write for 5 days, and it wouldn't really bother me too much as long as it comes when it wants to.
Yeah, it can be like that sometimes, that's for sure. So with all the travel and experience you've had there, are there any stories based on real life adventures? Is there a moment from your travels that you are have translated into the page?
I think bits and pieces. I wouldn't say fully. I'm still trying to, because a lot of weird magical things happen to me, like in Egypt, that I'm still kind of trying to incorporate the more magical side of my experience into a fictional world, which can be hard sometimes. Obviously, my poetry especially takes from real world situations and puts it in a more poetic form. So I wouldn't say directly, but I mean, one of my editors actually told me when the first time she went through my book one, she said, your two main characters are literally you, but they're total opposite reflections of you. And I was like, huh. I was like, I never thought of, and now I can't look at them otherwise. But it's kind of cool to have someone that knows you look at your work and then be like, I see it. So I guess it does in ways that I don't even mean it to, but I wouldn't say it's like a direct story.
Yeah, for sure. That actually just kind of brings up a question there. With a ongoing series, because you got 6 books. How many books you got in this series? Yeah, 6. And you're on book 2 there. As people are reading it, before you kind of get into the next one there and they're giving you feedback, do you find it subconsciously changing how you are viewing the characters going forward, or do you already have the story kind of set in your head and you're kind of sticking to it?
I let the story unfold as I go with it. Anytime I have an idea, it totally changes. So I kind of let the characters do what they want to do, and I'm just along for the ride, really. It's a strange way that it works, but it does, and it makes me actually enjoy it more because I don't know exactly where they're going. Sometimes I have like a jump off point that I want to reach, but sometimes I don't get to it. Sometimes it changes. I don't think other people's opinions change because I'm super stubborn and I'm very headstrong, so whatever I want to do, I want to do. My editors get frustrated with that sometimes. One of them did demand that I keep 2 of my characters alive, so I have done that so far. That was one thing that she was pretty unwilling to compromise with me about. So, and I think she was right. So in that way, she impacted me. But other than that, I take opinions very.
So then what kind of have been the biggest challenges you have faced as a writer? Is it finding the right words, or is there any other hurdles you've encountered?
Probably the same as most indies as far as marketing goes, and obviously querying. Like, I think that's the same for everybody. For me, particularly that's different than anybody. Probably just my standard fits of melancholy that I get really mad and want to like burn my books to the ground.
No, that's pretty common. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think maybe getting out of repetition, maybe like trying to get out of repetitive words and stuff that I didn't realize that I used so much, and also reading a couple other authors and the way that they describe things, and like, I could probably describe them a little more in depth like that. I will say that the female authors that I read do kind of excel in description a little more than the male authors I read, but I do admire that, so I think I could sharpen up on that point probably.
All right. Well, it's always good to find something here like, shit, I wish I could be better at that, and working on it. I know I have my own, that's for sure. Many of your writings kind of touch on the themes of nature and animals and the state of the world there. What are you kind of hoping readers are going to take away from your work regarding, relationships with the natural world?
If I had one thing I really want people to take away, is that we can live along with the natural world like we're meant to, and we can all coexist and really function if we all allow ourselves to. Also, to I want readers to realize, the way the world has changed and our little houses and the big skyscrapers and everything isn't totally natural, and it does impact us in ways that we might not realize. And if you're walking down the street and just throwing out your garbage, you might think, oh, that's going to go somewhere. But the problem is it does go somewhere, and not somewhere good. So I think I just want people to pay attention to the natural world and how important it is and our role in it. Probably the biggest takeaway I'd like. As far as Tales goes, I really try to get my animal characters to portray pieces of humanity in different ways. So I'm hoping that they look at that and they take a lot away from it, because I have characters that go through very normal human emotions, like suicide, for instance, and other things that they experience. So I'm hoping that people can relate and be like, oh yeah, we're all animals by the end, and we all start from the same place and go to the same place, and we're revolving around each other. So
for sure. So your stories often reflect human emotions, as we were just talking there, and struggles through the animals themselves. What do you think is the power of using animals as a lens to explore all of the human conditions and emotions?
So it's cool because my hippiest teacher, we took an animal class. So we actually had to write about animals. We had to read about why people use animals and how different animals impact different people psychologically. So I think it's really unique because we can read about people, but we don't always view it the same. But humans really, a lot of us really have an affiliation with certain animals, and we view them certain ways. We view rats as gross, even though they're beautiful and loving, and bunnies as cute and lovely, or we view tigers as, as they are powerful, majestic, and whatnot. And we have all these affiliations with these animals, and that's been around since way back. I mean, natives have, every animal has a very specific meaning. So I think I really try to play on that and use it to convey certain things, but I also do it ironically in some ways to show that you might look at this animal this way, but it doesn't mean it's that way. So I kind of do a little bit of both. I try to have them have some symbolism in what they are and how they are and how they're viewed, but I also try to play on that a little bit and change people's perspectives, maybe.
Well, it's a good way to keep people on their toes, at least, and getting them thinking in a different avenue. I dig that. So with all the places you've been and the stories you've written there, do you find the spiritual element in your travels kind of seeping into your work there? Is there a connection between the journey and the deeper meaning behind your stories?
I didn't until recently. I think book 6 is taking a lot more of that in than I had realized. I think as far as my own spiritual journey, I guess, because I've been writing this series for, 10 years now almost. So I think as far as my own spiritual journey goes, the books have kind of come along with it. And we've seen that from authors, where you've seen authors become atheist or Christian throughout their life, and you can see it in their works. And I think mine has kind of followed that spiritual journey in that way, and also just growth as an individual and seeing the world over these years and experiencing things very differently. I think it's kind of all impacted it. I'll be curious if readers have that same perspective, but I think as far as, really spiritual stuff, a lot of my most inspired times come if I'm at church, or if I'm trying to do like a Buddhist meditation or whatever, or if I'm out communing in nature. So I think all of that kind of comes into it. And then I do believe that, my book 6, for instance, weighs pretty heavily on the elements and peace and the idea of peace in a series that's very battle and war and brutal and aggressive and full of gore and pain. So I think as far as that goes, it definitely follows a spiritual journey within myself.
That's fantastic. Growth is very important, and exploring new things like that to find a way to express it better to the audience, I think, is a fantastic way to go about doing that. So let's kind of look to the future now. So after Tales and Writing with the Wolves, what's next for you? Do you have any other adventures? You had mentioned kind of penciling out a next series. Anything you can tell us about that one?
I'll end up doing another poetry book at some point along the line, probably. I might take a break from writing, but I say that all the time and it has yet to happen, so I probably won't. The next series was actually, I had planned it when I was working at Applebee's. serving. We were dead one night, and I was kind of planning it out. Now it's kind of changed. It's probably going to be called the House of... It's supposed to be Fong, but this is for Cantonese people that might understand. The spelling is not always the sounding. So Fong, some people spell it F-O-N-G, and some people spell it like Fang. So I'm going to kind of play on that. It's going to be like another kingdom series. I want some centaurs. I want to make up another race myself that I've made up. And then basically, I don't want to give too much away, but this princess with an abusive dad goes and finds a djinn. The djinn partially grants her a wish, but she doesn't know what the negative side of that wish is. Kind of goes on a murder spree, and then I haven't totally got down from there. I have a line of a God-given man, but I don't know how to exactly go about that, and they're supposed to combat. But between that, there's so much that I'm going to fill up. So I do have a rough map built and a very rough guideline, but so much of my energy is going to book 6 right now and giving my characters the ending that hopefully they deserve. We'll see.
Now, is it going to be an ending that the audience is going to like, or are they going to hate you for it?
We'll see. I'm interested to see how my editors feel about it first, because oftentimes they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that." So, but that's also what I like. I like not shock value for the sake of shock value, because I let it all happen naturally. But I do like people to be like, "What are you doing?" So, but I think people will like the ending if it plays out like it does in my head. So there's still time.
Well, fingers crossed for all of that, and I know we're going to be excited to see the next series and all of that stuff. So kind of as we kind of round out this before we get into off the record there and the rapid fires before that, how do you feel you've kind of grown as a writer over the years? Are there any man, that word always fucks me up every single time. Anyways, are there any moments in your career where you feel like you made a breakthrough, either creative or personally, that kind of elevated you to the next level?
I'm a person that's really, really hard on myself in every aspect of my life, because it's kind of how I push myself. I don't know if I ever feel like I make a breakthrough. I could get traditionally published tomorrow and get like a 6-figure deal and be like, I could do better. My editor just told me today, actually, she's like, you don't allow yourself to like get the wins at all. You're just like, nope, not good enough, keep going. I would say, I mean, I've definitely grown as far as writing goes and as far as learning, but sometimes I go to edit my book and I'm like, man, maybe I haven't grown, because that mistake has been haunting me for like 15 years. I will say, as far as description goes, I've gotten better. Because of Tales, I now realize that world building is very complex, and you should probably start some of it ahead of time, not just go willy-nilly and then try to do it all after. So I think I've learned from that series the most is just like, some structure is important for your own sanity and not trying to put it all together. But I think just in general, you know, the more you read, the more you write, just like anything, you're practicing, you're filling your mind. And I think that's the most important thing I've learned, is kind of to balance reading and writing, and not just reading what you love, but reading different genres, different authors, different everything. That way you can kind of take it all in and push it all out. I think it's how we grow. I mean, if you're just reading if you're just reading Stephen King, you're probably going to end up writing similar to Stephen King. But if you're taking in all of these and you're doing your own art form, so I think that's probably the way I've most significantly grown. And I think that's definitely benefited my writing.
Definitely. No, I think, you know, again, going back, just it's important to continuously learn from different sources. It's a very fundamental thing, which actually answers the other question, which was, you know, what advice would you give someone? I think that pretty much answered that. So, you know, you're doing pretty good on that one. Let's kind of move into the rapid fire now. It never ends up being rapid fire, so don't worry. You know, take a drink, relax for a second, breathe. Yeah, all right. Rapid fire here. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
I'll accept it. It's fine. Favorite country you visited?
Greece.
If you could be any animal for a day, what would you be?
Mythical or actual?
Your choice. One of each. Let's do one of each. Come on.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to be Pegasus specifically, but a flying horse, I guess, would still be fine. And then realistically, a real animal, probably it's a toss-up between a panda and a tiger for totally different reasons.
Well, let's get into this. Okay, first start with why specifically a Pegasus?
I just think because of Greek lore, they're really cool. I think they're just, I mean, I grew up riding horses. Horses are pretty magical in themselves. So a horse with wings is like double the magic.
That's a good point. And difference between panda and tiger?
Pandas are fun and goofy, and they just don't seem like they care about anything. And they just like roll around and do whatever they fall a lot too, but that's fine. And then, I mean, tigers just because they're majestic, they're beautiful, they're powerful. I mean, a full-grown tiger can break a bear's back with one swipe if it hits it right. And also, in my animal class, my main story was based off a tiger, so I did tons of research on them. So it'd be pretty, and you don't see them often, so
definitely need more tigers. I'd go with red pandas. That's my animal. I love red pandas.
That's my favorite animal, and it's the only stuffed animal I have. And I was gonna pick that because they're fun to watch at the zoo. But I mean, because I love them so much and they're my favorite, I don't want to go with them. I want to be like maybe a giant panda.
Yeah, pandas are great. Pandas are definitely great. All right, one book that has changed your life.
Oh gosh, like series or just one single?
Take your pick.
Probably A Song of Ice and Fire.
What about it really drew you in?
I feel like I hate that answer because it's so generic at the moment, probably, but just George R. R. Martin's world building is so insanely vast and descriptive that I just think it's totally mind-blowing that someone can create such a world, have so much in that world, keep the characters interesting and valid, and also have such multiple layers of dynamic characters. So I really just think, as far as fantasy goes, and as far as anything I've ever read, I'm still astonished by his writing and what he's done in such a huge world.
That world Bible has got to be so massive. Like, I can't even imagine how big that thing is.
I can't fathom how he even kept it all straight, because I have half of those characters and half that size world, and I have a hard time sometimes.
Well, first off, when you start killing them off really fast, you don't have to worry about too much. But yeah, no, I as we'll talk about off the record there, I am a massive advocate for story and world Bibles. Just hands down the easiest thing. That's something oh, hello, my cat has arrived. Mountains or oceans?
Oh gosh. That's probably the hardest question for me, because I really love snorkeling and I love water. I love climbing. I'm probably going to go oceans, even though I literally climb mountains pretty much every weekend.
I have to go mountains, man. I'm like right next to the Rocky Mountains. They're like an hour away. It's just, gotta go mountains. They're so good. What is one place left on your travel bucket list?
I will be going to New Zealand in March, but if I had to China is really probably number one on my bucket list.
That is a solid choice to go. Gracie, you are, again, like you always come in at this point and you just take over the show. Yeah, you. All right. So, describe both your books, well, series and book, in 3 words.
My series, I would describe with, I would say brutal, beautiful, and deep.
Solid.
And as far as my poetry book, I would just say nature, chaos, and tranquility.
Ooh, all solid answers. Now, for the penultimate one here, without using any one of those words you just said, describe your writing style to me in 3 words.
Messy. Oh, I can't use chaos.
Cannot use chaotic. Oh, I planned that one out.
Messy. Oh. What is the word I want to use? not intuitive, but I guess raw, messy, raw, and can't use deep.
See, you probably
Vulnerable.
could, because at this point I've already forgotten the original 6 words. So you probably could have got away with it. It would have been fine. You know?
Oh, vulnerable.
Vulnerable is a solid choice. It's actually a very good choice. I really like that one. And then for the final, most important, difficult question that you are going to be asked during this entire interview, where can people find you and your books?
They can find me on Amazon at the moment because Ingram Spark and my manuscript are not getting along very well for some reason. So Amazon, you can find me at Timothy Robare, at Threads, Writing with Wolves 22, along with Instagram. Also, my other Instagram, along with X/Twitter, along with TikTok, are all author T Robare, Robare. Yeah, and I do want to just say so everybody knows that I am a legal lord. That's why I put lord in there, because I do have a lordship in Europe that's legally binding, so it's just a fun thing to add.
Always good to have, that is for sure. Thank you so much, Gracie. Like, this is the outro, dude. What are you doing? Okay, here we go. Thank you so much, Timothy, for taking the time to tell us all about your journey and your stories here. We are going to jump into Off the Record here, but for everyone that is not a member of the Creative Coffee Cafe or the Patreon, make sure to check out Tales of the Battle and Writing with Wolves. You can follow Timothy absolutely everywhere. The links and all of that are going to be down in the description below. We are now going to transition to Off the Record, and yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, share, do all that fun shit. This has been another episode of the Dripping Creativity Podcast, part of the Creative Coffee Cafe community. My name is Chris Corvan. You can find me everywhere at Chris of the Void. And remember, stay creative, stay inspired, and until next time, see ya.